Welcome to another segment of Conversate and Ellavate. If you've been listening to Seek Ellavation, you know Conversate and Ellavate is the 26 Impact Series where I identify 26 amazing, impactful individuals that will, I believe, deposit some food. If you're hungry, deposit some food into your soul that can help you on so many levels. If you watch Seek Ellavation, then you know that I deposit some food and some knowledge. But I learned that information coming from one person is not as diverse, not as full. So that's why I brought on 26 individuals so you can hear diverse stories and hopefully get something that fits exactly for you to inspire you, but also to possibly connect with that individual to continue to level up in life. So today, who I have on is the amazing, incomparable Terrence Trammell. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, teammate. Let me start off by saying go Cox.
Go Cox.
Doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for blessing the platform and for blessing however many viewers and listeners, because Seek Ellavation is on YouTube, but it's also on all major streaming platforms. So we have a combination of viewers and listeners. And I always tell people, whether you're listening on a streaming platform, also go on YouTube to see the person, look them in their eyes, like just put a face to the story and look at the sincerity. So, all right, tell the viewers and listeners, who is Terrence Trammell?
I am a kid that had a lot of dreams and a lot of high aspirations from Decatur, Georgia, who saw myself as going pro in some type of sport. Didn't know what it was. I thought it might have been football. Lo and behold, it became track and field. But I dream big. I see the best out of situations and work with people to get the best out of them and allow them to become the best parts of themselves. And so very creative and just a myriad of things that I can bring to the table just from a personality standpoint, just kind of gauging what's going on. If somebody is happy, just keep the joy going. They're a little bit sad, just some ears, to lend. So a good friend, I think. So
absolutely. Like you said, you're someone that can bring the best out of someone. And what I always tell individuals, yes, because you had that experience, you brought the best out of yourself. So in order to do something for somebody else, you kind of master that yourself. It's one thing to master other people in the world, and it's another to master yourself first. And you've done that. We're going to build up to that. So you are definitely right about being someone to bring the best out of themselves. But I want to go back a little bit. You said that you had aspirations for football, and then there was a pivot with track. And that's how it happens in life. Sometimes what we think or envision doesn't work out a certain way. So for some people that makes them crumble, for some they find other things. So what happened with your vision with football, and why didn't that work out?
So growing up, I watched my older brother play football. And of course, every younger brother wants to be just like their older brother. And of course, I was very fast. I was talented. My dad played college football. My brother, played high school football. And that was just the biggest, I think, bond that we all shared. And so I grew up playing all over the field, basically different positions, whether it be offense, defense, special teams. Went to high school, all state free safety. We won the state title my junior year in high school. I'm going to take a step back and talk about how track began. So I always knew I was fast. I never really considered track, but in the 8th grade, I played basketball. I made the middle school team at my school. And at that time, we didn't have middle school track and field. So you had to go to your feeder high school in order to participate in track. And so my middle school basketball coach was the track coach at the high school. Now, I didn't play much in middle school as far as, I was on the team, but I didn't really contribute that much. And I was I was thrown aback by that because I thought I was a much better athlete than apparently the coach thought. And so track actually came about from my desire to prove somebody wrong about me. So tryouts came for the track team, and we all went over to the high school and tried out. And I realized at that point that my basketball coach was the girls' track coach. So it didn't do me much good to show him anything because he didn't pay attention anyway. But what it did for me was allow me to learn under my high school coach, who's still with us, Napoleon Cobb. And so he instilled a lot of hard work ethic, visualization, and positivity. He loved us, but he loved us hard. And so with football being my first love and my primary sport at the time, I was really just feeling my way through track. And I was so successful so early in track till I kind of wanted to see where it would take me. And I had a lot of letters and offers from the major schools in D1 football at the time, and from the NCAA at the time. And so I had a good dilemma because I could have chosen a football scholarship or a track scholarship. And so what happened, what made my decision to pursue track and field, one, I thought I could always come back to football. But two, my brother and I had a chance to actually come and witness the Olympic Games here in Atlanta because I was headed into my senior year of high school. It was the summer prior to my senior year in high school. And so we got a chance to witness in person Carl Lewis win his last Olympic medal in the long jump, Michael Johnson win the 400 in those golden shoes, and Allen Johnson winning the hurdles, winning the 110s. And so I was just so inspired and so awestruck by the different cultures, the diversity of cultures that were in one building and the flash bulbs that went off as their favorite athletes ran around the track. And I looked at my brother and I said, in 4 years, that's where I want to be. And so my senior year approached in high school. I played football, continued to run track, obviously, and did some really good things in both. And I, for the most part, still had trouble deciding what to do. And so I was being recruited by Coach Fry and found out that Allen Johnson was moving to South Carolina from North Carolina. And I thought that would be an outstanding opportunity for me to train along the world's best. And so I want to say Coach Fry and I talked extensively. And I had a big thing about doing both in college. I wanted to do both because I felt like they went hand in hand and they were in separate parts of the year, so they didn't cross over, which would have been a good thing. And so Coach Fry said, if I would run track for him for 2 years, he would allow me to walk on to play football my 3rd year. And this just goes to show kind of what wisdom has, because I think he had already calculated that my 3rd year would be that Olympic year.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no way I was going to jeopardize that going to play football. And so, yeah, we went, and we had some really good, a lot of success, running at the collegiate level, and that fateful time came up that I was competing for my first Olympic team. And so, that kind of made the detour happen from football to track.
Right. So wait, I want to go back real quick, because the first thing that you mentioned when you built up on the story was you was inspired and wanted to live up in the shoes of your brother. And that's how we do in life, right? Sometimes we don't know what we want, and then we are either inspired or we just follow the footsteps of what we know and
Right.
what we see. And we possibly may not think there's anything different, or we just think that, I just love what I see and I want to go get it. So people do need to know that although you may be inspired and want to follow the footsteps of somebody or only what you see, it may possibly be something out there different for you, even if it doesn't work out that way. There's so much more. But how you find that out is by being true to yourself. When I heard your whole story, it made me think of God did, first of all, when people didn't believe in you. Right. You believed in yourself. And of course, the Almighty did, because as you're telling your story, when you in it, you think it's you just making these decisions. But as I'm hearing it, it's just completely orchestrated, right? So you're making a decision that I'm going to do this to prove someone else wrong. But it was more than that came out of it. It was to prove everything right about your journey, because it gave me chills when you said you went to the Olympics, in 1996 Olympics, and you see Alan Johnson and didn't even realize you were seeing a glimpse of your future right there, right? So you're seeing that, and then you end up going to University of South Carolina, where he's actually at, someone that you were in awe, that was inspiring, and then that's where you end up at. So if you listen to your whole entire story, it's an orchestration. And that's what I want to encourage people to do, is when we're in something, we can't see it. It doesn't look like, it just looks probably messy. It looks tough. We just see the struggle. But if we stay true and just continue to, unfold, there's a story. So that's what I wanted to pull out with what you just said right there. So why hurdles in sprinting? I mean, I know you've seen Alan, you was in awe, but when you stepped out the track, like you said, you was just fast. Because first of all, let's back up. Terrence Trammell can just run the open 100 and 60 as well. So, I mean, you dispelled all that. Like, no one can talk trash about, okay, this is a hurdler, and then you have sprinters. No, you were a sprinter who can hurdle. But why hurdles? Where did that come in at?
So ironically enough, before I really got my footing, as you would say, in the sport, as a high school freshman, I was kind of like the third guy or third tier guy on my team. I mean, we had a lot of talented athletes at my high school. And so I was really just finding my way. And I told this story at my Hall of Fame induction. We used to have junior varsity invitationals, and we would run those invitationals in the middle of the week. And so at that time, we were still running on asphalt. And I was done for the day. I probably did I don't know, I was probably on the second 4x1 relay, and probably ran, the second or third heat of the 100. And I'm done for the day. And I'm watching just all the events going along, and I'm cheering for my teammates. And I remember the 110s coming up. And so I had a really good teammate at the time on junior varsity. And so he went out and he won the race. But I saw all of this turmoil and all of this clattering and all of this falling and death and carnage and everything all over the track. You know what I mean? And I looked at one of my teammates and I said, man, there is no way in the world I will ever do hurdles. Like, did you see what just happened? And so the very next day, I'll never forget this. This was on a Thursday morning. My high school coach grabbed me before we went off to class. And he said this one thing to let me know we were going to be talking for a while. He said, Trammell, I want you to come walk with me. Let's walk with me. And I was like, because I know when he gets to talking, I'm going to miss first period. I miss part of second period. I might miss third. And nobody is going to challenge him because that's Coach Cobb. Like, he runs the school, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, cool, let's talk. So he said, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I want you to be my next great hurdler. And I said, Coach, man, you can't be serious. Like, you saw what happened last night. What make you think that, you know, I can do that? He said, no, just listen to me now. I think you'll be great. He said, I'm going to model you after Ronaldo Nehemiah. That's who I'm going to pattern you after. And so I didn't know how to take it at first. But then after a while, it was kind of like, okay, like, this could be my thing. This could be something that I own. I show ownership to this. This be my way of contributing. So we went out there, and Coach Arthur Baugh was the one who actually taught me the basics of hurdling. And we went out in the grass, and he had 3 hurdles. They were at the lowest height. And he told me a rhythm that I should hear when I touch the ground on the other side. Try to emulate that rhythm when I touch the ground. And so clearly I didn't have the rhythm that he had, but I didn't fall. And, you know, that's the first thing you check off, you know, the box. And I went on and continued to work. So we worked every day for 30 days in the middle of the season to get the basics down and really just work. I was the last one off the track. I was the last one in the weight room. I was the last one to go home. Every day, I was the last one. My dad and Coach Cobb were really good friends. They were neighbors. Of course, I was just before I was born. They were neighbors. And so my dad was with it. Like, he supported it all. It was basically, my dad wouldn't allow me to quit. He wouldn't allow me to do anything that went against what Coach Cobb said. So, not that I wanted to, but even if I did want to, I had no choice. Like, if nothing else, I'm going to finish out the season. But my first meet comes along where I'm hurdling, and it's a junior high meet, which means 7th, 8th, and 9th grade compete. And this was my very first time running the hurdles. And get this, the record at that meet was like 1950 something, right? For the hurdles. And I ran 1776, I think it was, 1775. And I got out because I got accustomed to coming out of the blocks and going over the first 2 or 3 hurdles. Then I stutter step 4, 5, and 6. And then some kind of way I found myself back going on 3 steps for the rest of the race. And it was like I broke the record my very first time out. Regardless of how slow it was the record.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, I might be able to do something with this. And so that became my focus. So I ran the 4x1, the 110 hurdles, the 300 hurdles, and the 4x4. That was my thing. So that's what I did. I mean, I had a lot of success. I went under the national record twice in the 110s. I tied the national record in the 60-meter hurdles at the time. And yeah, I mean, it was an amazing journey as a high school track athlete. I was track and field news male athlete of the year my senior year in high school. And so it was a really good time for me.
And what's what's really good is with you being so young in high school, being receptive and open to someone who's seen something else that you couldn't see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had this admiration and respect for the individual, and you also had, like you said, your dad, rest in peace, who was this neighbor and all that great stuff that you wouldn't be able to do it if not. But still, at the end of the day, you took accountability. You still, because even if someone's parent makes someone do something, or someone just does something because maybe they're intimidated by someone, doesn't mean they're going to give it everything. You still went out there and said, I'm going to trust. And you was receptive to that. And that's the one thing a lot of us may miss in life, no matter what stage we are in life or whatever we're doing. We may have people put in our lives, right? That's giving us that guidance and assistance that's coming higher from them. And I very rarely have regrets, but I can say one of the things, if I had it to do it over again, is to listen to those around me who told me, Ella Keisha, 100 hurdles is not your thing. You need to do 400 hurdles. But everybody want to be a sprinter, right? Everybody want to do it. So my thing, nope, I'm going to do this. So not trusting and being receptive, but there was something there because everyone was saying the same thing. You don't train for this. You could jump out and just do this. No, that's not my thing. You were receptive. And that taught me in life, pay attention to the people that's around in my circle. Pay attention to that energy that's connecting, and then hear what's being said. Something will resonate because it may be the guidance that you're praying for, assistance you're praying for to go that direction. So that was huge. You point that out. Give me some of your thoughts right now on our status of USATF, our current athletes, and the whole situation. Because you're going to go from high school, like you said, college, we talked about, but now you're going to pro, and you also left college early. Go pro. And what does pro even mean? But we'll get back to that. Talk about what it looks like, because everybody just sees like the Terrence Trammell, the outside. They don't know the story. They just see, oh, glitz and glam. This is track and field. I'm going pro. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that whole situation with current athletes and pro.
So, first of all, I thoroughly enjoyed these world championships in Oregon. I thought that it was so good for our sport to see Team USA compete like they did, because we rarely get an opportunity in the States. If you're not an avid track fan or a former athlete or involved in the sport in some capacity, you don't really know what's going on with track and field. But we swept the men's 100 meters, and the women won the 4x1, and Sydney McLaughlin just went to outer space,
demolished
in the 400. I mean, and it was something that I had to watch by myself, because I didn't want anybody not affiliated with track and field to ruin those moments for me. But to get to that point, it is extremely challenging. We're talking about being the top athlete in the world in your discipline. And I don't think people can really put that into perspective, because when you are in the United States, we put world champion on everything. The Super Bowl, they're the world champions. The NBA Finals, they're the world champions. The World Series are the world champions. But everybody's in the United States that you compete against. We are truly world champions. What people don't see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the question was people going pro, meaning like the younger athletes that may pop a time or two and want to forego college and go pro. The one thing that people have to realize that they may not realize is when you're talking about running in order for you to eat, in order for you to have a livelihood, it's a whole different ball game. See, it's fun in high school. In college, it's a little more serious, but it's still fun. But in situations where you being able to pay your rent or your mortgage or feed your children or take care of mom or whatever the case may be, is contingent upon how you finish this particular race minus how you finished the race before or whatnot. That's an insurmountable amount of pressure to perform under, and you are expected to perform under those guidelines. The time change when you go to Europe, the weather change when you go to Europe, the difference in food and culture when you go to Europe. Your luggage may get lost when you go to Europe. My very first track meet, I was without my luggage for about the first 2 to 3 days. I'm wearing the same thing constantly. And might I add, European sizes are not the same as American sizes. So it's hard to find, you know, some Fruit of the Loom over there that's going to help you get through the initial day. You know, so there are a lot of components to being quote unquote professional in the sport. I think that we have amazing athletes at this time. And I think the fact that they're able to use their likenesses to draw in followings and revenue from their social media platforms, I think is absolutely amazing. There's always the, I wish we had this win. I don't even know how well I would have done with social media, but I think that the sport is in a really good place. And I think that it can continue to flourish, but we have to make sure that it's still all about the athletes when it comes to the national governing body. We have to make sure that the athletes are being compensated in a way that they feel like they are of elite status. As an Olympian, as a 3-time Olympian, I can tell you that every last one of those experiences were completely different in its own way. And I can also say that being at the Olympic Games is like being at no other sporting event. And I'm saying this as a spectator and as an athlete, because what you see on TV is just a microcosm of what you experience as to actually being there. But the cool thing is what you see on TV and how grandiose the moment seems on TV, it is really like that in person. When you walk on the track, you see the stadium and the festive colors around the outside part of the track and the little camera that goes along the side of the track when they come, you see all of that, and it's exactly as it is on camera. And you just, you know, I always love to absorb those atmospheres. You know, I loved big, energetic, hostile crowds. I felt like I performed my best in those situations because I just fed off the energy. And so I think we have a really good group of young veterans in the sport. And I think that they have the personality and they have the talent to really inspire a lot of kids in the US that are looking to be a part of the track and field community. Like I said, I think the only thing, and this has been a challenge or something that we've always kind of lobbied for, is just better pay for the athletes, you know, and there are a myriad of ways that can happen. So
absolutely, you know. Like you just brought up, first of all, the time and space we're in right now, talking about likeness, being able to use that. But see, this is the thing. Being in that time where that can be used is different than being in that time and it is being used. So I totally agree with you about, like you said, the national governing body. And like you said, this has been a struggle for eons. So at some point, whatever we're struggling with in life, and we're talking about this right now, you have to take control of it. Like you said, we now have as a whole, talented group of athletes that can demand the trajectory for themselves and those coming behind them. But what I have seen, especially even right now, is still not the demand, but the begging, the asking, help me. It's still that mindset. Talent is one thing, but we're talking about a mindset overhaul here. And so I too been watching, first of all, since last year, just how we're building up with this amazingness. And the one narrative that hasn't changed is, please give me something. Didn't I prove myself yet? Help me. And a lot of people were shocked to see certain things come out. How are you struggling? You're running such and such time, which they don't understand in sports is that that's a real thing. What you see, you think is all these millions of dollars. Like you said, it's that top athlete. And even with the top athlete, never get paid in respect to what they have established for the sport. Do you hear me? Like when they're done, when they walk off the track, there's still a level. There's still a line they pushed out that established that up level for the sport. And that struggle's there. And it made me think about, I don't know if you remember this. I can't remember what meet we at. I want to say it was in Ohio, because I remember Donica Merriman being there. I don't remember, but we traveled to a meet. And at that time you had left as well. And we end up going to get dinner one night. And you bought the dinner. And I was thank goodness, because I traveled to that meet, and mind you, I had finished school and I was pro, and I was struggling financially, and I had very little bit of money with me to stretch it out. I remember I packed me some fruit, but then I had to line up the next day mentally and be prepared mentally and physically, eating scarcely, to be able to compete. That's the real struggle that actually goes on. And like you said, though, we're in a time where we can flip that, Terrence. Like we don't have to wait for a national government body. We can use every platform and not just look at a shoe contract. Or there's so many people out here that you have to sell yourself to maximize a situation. So I just wanted to pull that out. Anything you wanted to add to that? You was about to say something?
No, I think you're really spot on with that, because again, every sport derives from track and field in some type of way. And it's a hard reality to know how much our sport influences other sports and how much it's kind of like put on the shelf until the Olympics.
That's it.
Even Fortune 500 companies, they just, they don't even get involved until it's the Olympics, and it's all about brand placement and that sort of thing. And I just have the hardest time. First of all, shout out to NASCAR. Like no hate, no shade intended, but I just have the hardest time seeing how many dollars and how many people watch cars drive for 2 hours. But we have people actually pushing the limits of humanity doing the same thing. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay. There's a need for what we bring to the table. And it's just all a matter of how well can that be packaged? How well can we market more than just one person? I mean, people always want to associate themselves with Fortune 500 companies. That's 500 companies that we're talking about worldwide. But when it comes to athleticism, primarily our sport, like on Talladega Nights, what the guy say, if you either first or last, you either win. And I mean, come on, we're talking about the top people and top individuals in the world, so I think track and field gets a bad shake as far as that's concerned, in our society primarily, because we're so pushed on winning, and it is an extremely tough feat to make a world championship team, to make an Olympic team.
Mm.
It is extremely difficult to make it to a final of a major championship. And for all of that to culminate to how well do you execute on that night, or how well do you feel on that night, determines whether you win and you get 100,000 or 50,000 or 20,000. You know, and so it's a lot to be had. I love that for the most part, I'll say the fastest person wins. You know, that there's no politics in who crosses the line first. And I think that's the beauty in our sport. The clock doesn't lie, and the tape on the finish line doesn't lie.
Right.
So I think all track athletes, past and present, just hope for a day where the sport gets its just due, just from the purity of athletics, you know, from an athletic standpoint.
And we got to do it. You brought up a good point, though. You brought up NASCAR. And the reason why, like you said, people will watch that is because they spoke the language and found the formula of those with the deep pockets and interest, whether it was betting on the races, whether it's being able to tie themselves to promoting cars, some of the best cars. They found the thing in there to draw that. And now it's time for us, because people, like you said, only think athletes pop out every 4 years. So we'll just go on in 4 years. There's a lot going on. So we got to draw that interest. Yes, we have to be given an opportunity to be seen, to draw it. But once we're given that opportunity, and also, like I said earlier, demanding it, because what we are changing, then we need to go out there and give them what's seen. I've seen some people understand about being humble. You don't have to be, you know, crazy, but also understand that you are entertaining. And sometimes we can't just step out there and just give this old race and I just felt good, and just it's entertainment. And so we have to know how to up level our sport too, to attract those individuals and pique their interest. And now use social media to keep one. We have to inform. So I'm happy you brought up NASCAR, and that is a good example why we have no excuse and we need to, you know, step up and do it. Speaking of which, like you said, you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. We're not going to skip over that real quickly. Like I said, there's people that pushes the sport to other levels. We keep evolving in the sport, and a sport doesn't evolve by itself. It's people that do it, people that are icons in it. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of people that's a student of the sport, let alone people outside of our sport. There's people in our sport that are not a student of our sport, but for those individuals, they wouldn't even, one, have the opportunity they have now, or even have the desire to break certain records, right? Because we're pushing a level. So I want to talk about that. How did that feel being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and what did that mean to you?
I'll say, as I competed, I wasn't thinking Hall of Fame. I just wanted to get as much out of the sport as I possibly could. I wanted to be as consistent as I could possibly be in getting as much out of the sport as I possibly could. But I think at this point in my life, being inducted into the Hall of Fame gave me a wow moment, because the person I've always been has always been, okay, on to the next, on to the next. Good, we got that. Let's go do something else. And it gave me an opportunity to sit down and say, wow, like, there are Olympic medalists that don't have this honor. And I think Tim Weaver put it in proper perspective for me when we were in Florida prior to the ceremony. He said, what being in the Hall of Fame means, Terrence, is that people will never be able to talk about USA track and field without you being a part of it. And I was like, whoa, you know, as long as people talk about USA track and field, they have to mention Terrence Trammell. And I was just like, man, like, wow. You know, I grew a couple of inches off of that. You know what I mean?
Rightfully so.
Like, yeah, yeah. So, so I cherish it. I'm humbled by it. I make sure that it's known that that's a part of who I am. And it just lets people know, like, I bring value to the table, to the sport. I mean, regardless, I'm an ambassador for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to always be that way. And so I feel really good about it. And I've kind of been a mess since that. And I'm saying a mess in that. So I coach a lot of teenage athletes.
That's right.
And so it's hard for teenagers to buy in and follow suit. And so now I just, oh, well, you know, I'm just in the Hall of Fame. So I don't really know that much about it. But, you know, I'm in the hall. That's what I say now. I'm in the hall. So, you know.
And they don't get it. And I was going to get into that because I want to say before we get into that, as they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Because like you said, you're in it, but you do bring value. You do bring validation. You bring a lot of things. And that's why it's really important for you. And that's why one of the reasons why I see you also as impactful 26. But even if you weren't inducted, I just watched from the short glimpse I got of your life. Just watch you, just watch the hunger, just watch the focus, like watch you transmute a vision into life. Like you just had this different, I'm like, what is it that he can tap into and literally say it, think it, and then I'm literally seeing this physically, but you inducted. So it is important for you to speak on these things. It's important for you to educate on these things and people hear from you. And now, like you said, you have athletes, but before we get there, you're a business professional. I tell everybody when you're an athlete, you are a business professional, but I go back when you were making the shoe covers for the Spikes. You made uniforms for Georgia State. And this is why I tell people, no matter what you're doing, tap into the you. All those things are just tags and platforms, but you're a business professional. You have a business now. So talk a little bit about your business side. Let's segue out to Terrence strictly business and what that looked like when you did that all the way to what you got going on right now.
So, wow, I just thought about this. The apparel side came again from proving somebody wrong. We were trying to figure out ways that we could market ourselves better within USA Track and Field. And years ago, I came up with a concept to do something for every Olympian or world championship team member to have some type of apparel in their hometown sports apparel chain. And I pitched it to our CEO at the time, who was the CEO. And I mean, I really just like put everything into pitching it to him. And he was kind of dismissive. It was kind of like, well, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then he just kept moving. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. You know, I'm going to do this. And so the whole shoe cover thing came from, I was just really inspired by watching the Tour de France and seeing the cyclists wear the covers over their cycling shoes. And I was like, you know, that would be a really cool concept. Like that would be a really cool thing because, you know, I had to match from head to toe. You know, I dyed my shoes when I was at Carolina. Like I had to match. and so I would do that. And then I went to, it was 2006, I want to say. and I was still in my Mizuno contract, and I had ideas for how to make the spikes from Mizuno look more appealing, especially to the American athlete. I mean, Japanese are all about performance, and they're all about how things work. And, you know, we're a little bit more of, we're a little bit more about the vanity portion of it. I mean, and yes, it works, it's good, but if it looks good, then, they work just fine. So what I did was I went to a local bike shop, and I bought just some biking shoe covers. And so when I would be in practice, sometimes I would just put them on just to see how they would feel. And of course, they did not fit for track spikes, but they look good though. And I said, yeah, I want to see something. And so I found a tailor. And this was after 2008, because I got injured at the Olympic Games in 2008. And that's the games where I was in world record shape. You can ask so many people that were in my camp at the time. I was ready to go low 12.7 to high 12.6 at that point. And so I didn't get a contract renewal. I was 29 at the time, and I guess maybe Mizuno felt like, well, he did about as well as he could do for us, and he's, getting kind of long in the tooth at 29. And so no other deals came across the table. So now I'm forced to wear my apparel. My goal was just to go probably one more Olympiad, go through 2012, and really get into my apparel thing after that, really launch it after that. But I was kind of forced into doing it early. And so I just wanted to be different. I just wanted something that said, this guy is an entertainer. This guy is an elite level athlete. And so I made sure that my uniforms and my shoe covers matched. And it didn't matter what pair of spikes I had on up under there. What they were going to see was Track Star at the time. That's what I named it. And then I changed it over to Astron, because Astron is short for astronomy or astrology, and it deals with stars. And I wanted to keep my logo. And I had started outfitting football teams, basketball teams, and that sort of thing. And I think Jordan is the only person that can get away with being a person dunking a ball on some football shoes. You know what I mean? Right. Because of the brand. But I did not see my brand doing that, so I changed the name to fit. And so, I got into that, and it worked. It worked well for a while. And just from there, I had a couple of things going on where the manufacturer, the primary lead for the manufacturer, was out on maternity leave. And so when she was gone, my stuff didn't come back right like I want. My football, basketball stuff came back spot on, but my track stuff didn't. And I'm like, this was basically my breaking into the niche. And so I decided to sit that down for a bit and get into consulting, camps, coaching, training guys to be ready for the combine and their pro day and that sort of thing. And in the midst of that, came upon an opportunity to coach in high school. And so we had a lot of success. We had, like I said, I just finished my 6th season there. We had back-to-back state titles. Prior to 2021, there was only one state title for the boys, and that was back in 72.
Whoa.
And so for us to have back-to-back state titles was huge. Basically found the pulse for the sprint program there. Distance, we have an absolute phenomenal distance program, but we needed a sprint program. And so I was able to bring my experience along and cultivate that. So we made some really good things happen. We shocked a lot of people. We turned a lot of heads. A lot of mouths dropped. And it's like, hey, this is what we do.
Just banging their heads. They're just banging them on. You just banging it. Like, what is going on? But I'm not surprised. And anybody who know you shouldn't be surprised, because whatever you was going to touch was going to be blessed with that amazingness. Now, I do know there's some people who know how to do and not know how to coach. And there's some people who know how to coach and know how to do. But you, even when you were an athlete, you were helping so many people, even on the sport. Like, you're just that full package, right? So to me, anybody that knows who you are, anything that you touch is going to get that sprinkle of gold dust. So talk more about the consulting, because like you said, there's individuals that maybe you can coach in person, individuals you can coach and touch them that's not in person. What does all of that look like?
So obviously there's just one me, right? And I want to coach everybody, and I want to touch everybody, and I want to be a part of, but it's only so much time in the day, and it's only so much me that I can give. And I started realizing that a lot of people wanted me to train their kids with sprints and with hurdles. And and I wanted it all, but there are people outside of where I live that could really use my knowledge and my experience. And so I would set up Zoom calls. I would look over video with them. I would tell them my suggestions. I would tell them how it would feel to do it this way. What's the difference? And and so it became something that I enjoyed doing, because I love doing this stuff. And it's really fulfilling to pull out of somebody what they already had, but they didn't know they had, like what we talked about earlier. And just to see when a light bulb comes on and to see it work for them, and just the gratitude that they feel, and the way that they surpass any type of boundaries for themselves in accomplishing that. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Do you also consult even with like elite athletes? There's individuals out there who need a coach. I'm just listening to some of the stories, speaking of the World Championship, of individuals who are coaching themselves, actually made the World Championship team, won, but some of them medaled, right? And I know what that feels like. You're trying to coach yourself, but like you said, you'll pull out something, you watch videos, but you also can have those conversations. You've been there. Have you ever thought about offering those services to these elite athletes that's out here?
So I've reached out to one or two, because it's some things that I see that I know could take them to the next level, and they would be there. It would be perpetual, until they decide to hang up the spikes.
Right.
But the timing's a little bit off, or they kind of stuck, or whatever the case may be. So I have offered, and I still leave my door open for that. But I think I've had a couple of football guys that I've worked with, for their off-season training, and also just preparing for their pro day or their combine, and that sort of thing. And for me, it's when they get it and the light bulb really comes on, and their whole approach and their whole demeanor changes, because it's like, oh, this is what I got to do, or this is all I need. It's like, yeah, and so then it's like they play with extra confidence, and they have a pep in their step, and that sort of thing. And so yeah, anything speed development, anything speed enhancing, whatever it is, I was, part of my purpose was to use my experience to help people be the best versions of themselves. And right now, the conduit is by making them faster. So.
Absolutely. And I want to pause to say, I'm speaking to anybody that's listening that may be elite in whatever you're doing. If you don't seize the moment or find a way to happen, I don't care what anyone says. If there's something that we really, really want, we find a way to make that happen. And I'm going to say it is far few in between to find certain gems that are coaches. There are tons of coaches. I get it. But I promise you, there's some individuals who just are cream of the crop, have that talent. You get with a coach, they're just coaching what's already there. But then you have those coaches who see that extra thing in you that can pull out that thing that you're supposed to ignite the world with. So don't get caught up in, I think I could go here, or I think I could just do this on my own. When you get with someone, this is bigger than about the sport. As you heard Terrence's story, his sport, being an athlete, was tied to his life experience and is constantly tied to it. Same here. If you're doing something, do it at your best level. And to do that, seize an opportunity in the moment to be able to do that. So whoever don't figure out how to make that work with Trammell, someone who has mastered that, you really don't want it. I'm sorry, I'm going to go out to say you really don't want. When I say it, that thing that you don't know how you're supposed to ignite this world with. So, yeah. All right. So is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with? What is the name of your company now? I see right behind you.
Trammell Athletics.
Trammell Athletics. T-A. Trammell Athletics. So
that's us.
That's you. And listen, Trammell, there's so much more that I know that's going to come down your pipeline, like how it's been. We don't know who's going to hear, who's supposed to hear, how they're supposed to hear, but being an impactful individual, there's still more. And please, again, know that heavy is the head that wear the crown, and you wear it well, sir. This is just the beginning. It's always just the beginning. And something was definitely laid on my heart that Trammell need to be out here speaking to the people, because it's definitely more. So I appreciate you for giving your time, giving your knowledge, and giving your energy. Anything you want to?
Just thank you again for inviting me on your platform, and you know, I see what you've been doing. I gotta say, I'm proud of you too, because I've seen. I've seen the different phases from, you know, post athleticism and that sort of thing. And I think what you're doing is a tremendous service and help to, you know, humanity actually, and to get under these things. And so it's awesome to watch. It really is. And so, you know, as we go forward, and as we go higher and throughout our days, just know that, and this is for everyone that's watching or listening, just know that our purpose is to use our talents to bring out the best in people, so that they see the Most High in themselves and they continue to pay it forward. So that's what I would leave you all with. You can look for me on Instagram at Trammell Athletics. I will be coming out with a YouTube channel soon under the same name, Trammell Athletics. So I'll be dropping some gems here and there, learning to do some shorts and that sort of thing. And still working on the last portion of my hurdle curriculum, doing a hurdle. So the one thing that I had gotten was a lot of coaches, they want to be able to help their kids, but they just don't know about hurdling. And so this is for the coaches that are interested in learning how to coach hurdling, and it's using all of my experiences and my approach to hurdling and that sort of thing. So that is in the works, and it'll be coming out soon.
Beautiful. Thank you. My light, acknowledge your light. Again, Thank you for listening to another segment of Conversate and Ellavate. If you were absolutely hungry, I know you are full now. You had a 5-course meal today from T. Trammell. So the more you know, the more you grow, but the more you share, the more we all glow. And until next time, keep elevating.